Hello and welcome to this CNBC Africa Special Report. My name is Mugisha, and today we are talking about space technology. Join us through Twitter at CNBC Africa, my personal handle at Mugisha, and we get into the in-depth of this discussion. Now, on this panel today, we will talk about so many things, and that includes content development on the continent, but also storage. I mean, one can't be without the other. Joining me is the CEO of the Rwanda ICT Chamber, Alex Nare, and of course, from a more film and space background is Val of the Africologist, the movie that you produced. Talk to us about, the idea of producing something to do with, the human journey, but in an African perspective. What does that mean, and how does it link back to space technology?
Well, there are many narratives out there, right, although we keep hearing just one or two that come from places a little bit more far away. But we have our own, and I thought it's time to revive that, to go dig back some interesting happenings that happened on this continent, to make them a little bit more attractive by using 3D and other kind of production methods to create something more attractive, and to make a documentary that gives that tells you the history of humanity, the history of cosmos, of the universe, from an African point of view, with African elements in the middle.
Technology for
It is not mainly about space technology,
right.
It's mainly about introducing people to science, to STEM and STEAM, and to introduce them to all these technologies and the origin of those technologies. Many of them have origins here in Africa, and then in the future it leads to, because it starts with the past and it ends in the future, it leads to space and to hopefully some Africans or astronauts living on another planet with their fellow astronauts and cosmonauts and everything that
talking about living on another planet takes me to this thing of moving to Mars. But just back to what he's talking about, introducing this science and technology to the African populace, more from an African perspective, something that they can relate to. How far have we gone with Rwanda? I mean, we understand there is huge investment in the science industry. What are we looking at currently?
So currently, we're beginning to see Rwandans actually who've been working in different parts of the world and working on amazing things. Case in point is Leap Farmers founder, and you look at what Dr. Clet has done, the inventions, the patents he has. It's just mind-boggling. And recently, I was chatting with someone, and he just had happened to have a medal, another Rwandan. And I asked him, just like a pin here. I said, "What's a pin? What does it mean?" And he tells me, "Oh, this is a pin I got from NASA for having done the mathematics that guided Voyage." And he's Rwandan. So when we talk about the fact, and this is work he did as far back as the early 80s and late 70s, early 80s. But it's to really reiterate and bubble these things up, so that to the top rather, so that we begin to inspire young people, young Africans. Today we hear of SpaceX, we speak of easily everybody knows these names, but there are also African names of inventors from not just our generation, but also previous generations that have been working on hard science problems and solving them successfully, but we don't hear of them. So this is for Rwanda, my experience over the last 7 years that I've been working in the STEM area, particularly on the ICT sector. In the ICT sector, we've seen young entrepreneurs evolve from trying to do a Facebook copycat to writing complex algorithms that are able to recognize facial differentiate different faces from a video clip. So that is the type that I'm talking about, the type of science that today we can speak of, and we want to make sure that this is as distributed, that it reaches as many young people as possible, because they have incredible dreams, incredible potential. I work with them every day.
Right.
These days I'm working with electronics. There's a young team that we're working with that is doing stuff in wireless electricity. They're able to cut energy costs by literally 30 to 40%.
With the rise in demand for all of this, shouldn't there be more emphasis on training local talent to actually harness that?
I think the first step would be very important, which is to develop a own way of developing talent without copying others. There's so much that happened on this continent in terms of mathematics, in terms of science in general, where there are very interesting facts to go dig back and to uncover and to use in the middle of science and the mainstream science that we have every day in order to develop something that is unique, that is proper to us, and that would be the differentiating factor if we want to compete with others. We need something that is different if you want to compete with others, or if you want to develop talent that is not a copycat of what others have. And the best way to do that is by digging up our own culture, our own history, in the same way that China or other countries did that. If you look at the difference between American way of space and space science and the Chinese way, there are differences there. Or the Indians who managed to send something to Mars or wherever for a fraction of the price of what NASA would have done. So by using this grassroots talent that manages to create things where you would just expect that it's just a bucket of mud, but they turn it into something interesting. Sorry, we will have something exclusive and interesting and unique that nobody else can achieve. And I think with over 1 billion people, there is a lot of talent sitting around statistically. So we should be hopeful.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I imagined you wanted to add something. But with the African Union Agenda 2063 and the targets that the continental body has in the space industry, you know, when you look at them and read through the papers, it's quite huge. And of course, looking at how to have their dividend of this, you know, aerospace industry. Tell me, what's necessary to realize this?
I think that agenda, maybe we should ask somebody who's connected to that. I'm going to ask him a question connected to yours. Do you think that for 2063 that agenda is bold enough? Because I think until we reach that point, we will have too much talent for that little.
I think.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I like this.
I'll speak to the fact of when you look from the agenda, right, just what the African Union has done, put together as a space strategy, for example, you find that yes, it is ambitious in the sense that they want to create talent. They want to solve. There's about 16 areas they've identified in terms of what space technologies, from health to climate change to agriculture, food security. So some of what we know as SDGs, but they've classified these areas as points of departure as to why we would want as a continent to venture into space and to develop our own capacities. So, but again, it always comes back to, yes, there's a strategy, but then how's the action going to be? Okay. And that's where I feel the likes of us and the rest of the young people that are involved, we need to just who are following the trends, the technology trends. We need not wait for yet another agency, an African agency that is going to come and do it, but rather how do we begin small as we are, baby steps towards that journey. And there's something in the movie where in the documentary where there's this simulation of an African colony on Mars.
Right.
And these are the types of things that will stir up young people to begin thinking, I could actually be part of the 2063 Mars team, or the 2030 or 40 or whatever the year is of the Mars team that goes African Mars team. There's several initiatives. There's Africa on the Moon, a project that is also on schedule with I think it's South African Space Foundation. So there's definitely vision and ambition, but it's the practicalities now. It's people who take that and run with it and begin to put it into action. I think you earlier we were talking about Africology, and from the Africologist, you bring in a philosophy of Africology, which is I think what you are alluding to. I don't know if you want to talk about that, because that's answers. Yeah, because that answers to your question. How do you build curricula?
Right.
I think until 2063, a lot of things are going to happen. Maybe there's some kind of a Moore's law that is happening also in the satellite industry. It's exponential,
yes.
The way that those things, the prices are going down. Soon everybody's going to be able to have a satellite, maybe farmers or whoever, the same way that 20 years ago nobody would have imagined that drones would become so popular. But science fiction, exactly, yeah. and science fiction always gives the first step. Science fiction is what creates science fact. That is a very important point. If you don't have something to dream to, you will not go as far as if you don't have anything.
Right,
we need something that we can dream of. I think Black Panther was something interesting already, although it's not ours.
I really think Ryan Coogler did a good job with that.
It is a good job, but he misspelled Wakanda. It's actually Wakranda, but that's the only error. But for the rest, it's really a great job. But the Africologist also is something in the sense of what Carl Sagan did in the 70s or in the 80s, creating documentaries that teach people, because when people get into the middle class, you start to have more time. You start to think of other things. The society changes. This change happened in other continents also as they developed. People start to settle, people start to pay attention to other things which are not just what you are growing in your backyard, but also what is out there. What can I do next? I was a farmer now, my kids need to be something better. Right. So I want to understand what is going on in the world, the technologies and everything that you can strive to. And I think until 2063, I don't know what's going to happen. I think that, I don't know.
Okay,
some African is going to build a rocket in his backyard and send it up.
Okay.
It's absolutely in the right time frame.
You're seeing it happening.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Alex, we are talking about, of course, creating content and some of the things that Val is an expert on. But tell me, from your perspective, where you stand as the Rwanda ICT Chamber, a case of infrastructure. Really, I think we also had a little hint on that a little earlier. How much of an emergency do we have, as we see right now? Just recently, when Rwanda signed a deal with the Alibaba, right, Jack Ma for the EWTP. Perhaps these are some of the solutions that could be created locally. But do we have the infrastructure readily available to run that?
So we've already taken, as a country, I think we've already made the first step, which was huge. I mean, looking at just laying fiber, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 today, I think you realize that was a huge investment, and that was a government investment. But then now, when you look at the results, there's still some work that needs to be done not just in terms of price or getting to as many people as possible, but rather to think of it as what is these days sung all over, that data is a new gold, or data is a new oil.
I mean, do they say that because it's mined?
It's mined, but because if you found oil wells in middle of a village somewhere, I'm sure you would do everything to invest in pipelines. We're seeing it. This is what they're already doing with Uganda, with Kenya, and all these places. You find that they're building pipelines, and the government is putting in this investment. It has structured. They've structured these things.
Right.
But even better, let's come back to coffee. I love coffee. I always say that it's a way to support farmers. But
also
I
one
just
of the crops
enjoy.
that one that really excel at.
Yeah, which is weird. But if we found the most specialized coffee in a very remote place, we wouldn't think twice in constructing a road that goes there.
Right.
Let alone, we would even go as far as providing trucks that bring in. And I think that's the kind of thinking process that we need to flip in terms of how we invest in infrastructure as a continent.
Right.
Because the developed countries, they've opened it up to private. The model is have the private sector do the investment, but there are repercussions to that. So it's a balancing act. For us, we are late. We have abundance of talent, and the world has already provided us a lot of the content that we need to upskill our people.
Right.
So the earlier conversation that we are having is to see how do we switch this so that we enabling this content to come alive. Right. We're enabling this oil to get to the market. Because the person in a remote place that cannot afford internet will not post their content, but they will also not learn how to create that rocket that you want them to create in their backyard. Okay, they will not know the materials. And the schools around them, think of the remotest place in Africa, the places they are in, the schools they're going to, they're not going to teach them this stuff. But on the internet, these things are available. So how do we provide that content at almost zero cost? I mean, even if it's possible, because what it does, it bubbles, it enables a whole lot more things to happen and creates new economies. Earlier today, I had another interview. I was looking at some of the reports for the One Area Network, results from the One Area Network. Just within the first 6 months of implementing the One Area Network that Smart Africa did among the 4 countries, what happened is that there was an increment in traffic, traffic from calls by 800%.
Wow.
Okay, and then when you reduce, when the calls price went down by 60%, it pushed up the traffic. People were trading. People were calling, and because they're not afraid of calling Kenya, thinking that it's gonna be, I'm gonna be priced roaming fee, I'm gonna be priced heavily.
But then, just not to cut you off, but something to add in there. Just as of recently, we saw now some telcos taking up, say, a 20 franc per minute thing when you're calling a random number that is outside, which is roaming, right? So that also brings up some confusion. Is it happening? Is it not happening?
It's coming. It's the 4 countries that have subscribed to One Area Network: Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, and South Sudan. Right. So some of the other countries in the region haven't yet subscribed. There are some that have signed up, but they've not yet implemented. So when price goes down sometimes, it will create new trade opportunities. Right. But also what I want to bring out is the fact that the content, there's new economy that you create. The content economy is yet, we have too many stories to tell on the African continent.
Right.
Yeah. But yes.
When we privatize those things too much, what I see in that is a form of digital colonialism again. It's coming again, occupying you, occupying the way you should think, the way it's basically an infrastructure-less, without having to send your military, without having to send anybody. You can still control the people in a form or another. If I would ask any Rwandese, right? Yes, exactly. If I would ask any Rwandese, what is the favorite car of Rwanda? Average favorite car or the favorite color? Nobody can answer.
Toyota.
But Facebook knows the right answer. They can just scan all the messages.
They do the data mining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you give all this data away, you give much more away than data. That's why they come and say, "Oh, we will build the infrastructure for you. Don't worry, we do it." Because if they build the infrastructure, they control it, and information is the absolute power nowadays.
Alex, I've got to let you go, but before I do that, Val, how do you see, the rise in technology? And of course, let's keep more focus on the space technology. Is, of more benefit to traders in Africa, businessmen? You are a businessman, so how does it benefit you and your organization or something like that?
I would wish that internet access would be much easier here on this continent, right, as a content creator,
right,
so that people can access whatever you have to propose to them. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's for somebody who works in this field, that's probably the first thing that you strive to, is who is going to be the Netflix of Africa. There's not really one yet that you could compare to something like that. And I guess space could play an interesting role in that. If we believe that satellites are going to be the way that we are going to stream information to people, I guess communication in general might not happen over satellite, but streaming content that is heavy like that, maybe you can explain it a little bit also, might happen over that kind of networks because of delays and that kind of things. So that's where maybe satellites could be very interesting, is to provide content that is repeated to different people. And then when it comes to satellite, I believe we should go step by step. I think we should also explore other technologies that are in the lower atmosphere at the beginning. That's also maybe he understands that a little bit better. But I guess that's just the way that I see things always, is to go step by step when we do those things. So CubeSats are very interesting, right, to start, and then we just build upon everything that we have to do. And science research, I think, is important also, because the threat that I see in space are certain aspects that happened in history that could happen again in that cycle, and we don't want to get in that vicious cycle that we have been, that always when there is a new opportunity, we don't really profit from it. We take a little step further, but whoever is behind gets even more further than we do. That's my fear.
We always stay on the consuming side.
Exactly.
Of some of this STEM science stuff. Mm-hmm. You find that as Africans, this is the latest thing, but we're consumers rather than producers. Right. So I think the partnerships that we've been building over time are to ensure that we actually graduate from consumers to producers. Right. So whether it's in space technologies or in data science or artificial intelligence, right, it's really to up the game. And there's some initiatives in Rwanda, but there are also other initiatives around the world, around the continent that I've heard of when I'm talking to young people that come, especially for Transform Africa Summit. You find that actually they have a similar idea here. They're working on something similar here, right. And for us, maybe if I'm to speak to what some of the practical stuff we're doing, we've partnered with IHS Towers, which is a company that is local here, to set up the Space and Telecoms Fellowship, a 6 months intense program that brings a multidisciplinary approach to learning, project-based learning. Young people are going to be working on data science problem sets, data image analytics. Others building CubeSats, because CubeSats, what it helps is it removes the fear.
Right.
Okay, it brings it within reach that, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can put it together. Oh, yes. And then you send it up to a lower Earth orbit. And we have some young guys that have been working on something where you can send it up, 400 kilometers above ground, and you still can communicate. You can communicate with it. And these are the kind of initiatives that really unlock the talent. You bring an opportunity to participate in such a fellowship. Right. That goes beyond just ICT in apps and stuff like that, but you get a little bit into deep tech, and you find that there's brains that you cannot even accommodate for whatever budget you have. So that's that's in a nutshell maybe what I can say. I didn't want to just leave it to, or this is just a possibility, but this is what we're also doing. Right. Probably when you invite us next time, we'll come and share with you some of the results from these programs. Last week, we graduated about 100 high school graduates and university graduates that were in a 2 months intense flying robots program. And the presentations that they made at the graduation were amazing. Right. We've run another program for young girls to close the the gender digital divide. Right. 6 months intense software development. Took in 100 girls. We're graduating with 28. And the others, within the first 4 months, they also graduated about 60% of them. And we're placing them in companies. We're finding companies that are beginning to get interested, because that's really where you bring talent, link it up with opportunity, and that unleashes it. As long as they can see that this is the end game, they will give everything to it. But most of the time we teach without an end game in mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for creating time to speak to us.
And thank you very much for
your
time.
All right. Thank you for joining us as well. This has been an episode of CNBC Africa Special Report with me, Mugisha, and we were discussing entirely space technology and some of the other technological advancements and how they are growing the African continent, and that is as far as content and also looking at how to use it in different perspectives and also our daily lives. Please remember to join us on Twitter at CNBC Africa or my personal handle at Mugisha. It is bye for now.